Welcome to Straightway Through with Gina, the podcast where we say it straight, say it true, say it kind to the best of our ability every time. Yes, that means imperfectly because I'm nowhere close to perfect, and I'm guessing you aren't either. Maybe close, but not there. And these kinds of conversations that we have here are about progress and process, not perfection. And it's interesting because the word process, was a very big keyword that a former teacher of mine talked about a lot. And even though I'm not here to talk about process tonight, I am here to talk about that teacher, or at least one of the teachings that I got from him. I was a body worker for years, meaning worked on the body physically. I was a trained licensed massage therapist, and then I went through extensive training with a particular teacher who was a physical therapist to go deeper into body work and into a very specific modality that is considered to be very mind, body, spirit. And I practiced that for years. It's called myofascial release. And I stopped training with him. I started training with him in 2013 and I stopped training with him in 2019. And the reasons I started and stopped could be a whole episode on its own. I'm not going to get into that today so that I can get to the actual thing that I'd like to share with you today. And the reason I bring all this up is he passed away in the last month. And when I heard the news that he passed away, he was probably close to 80 or somewhere between 70 and 80. He lived a long life. He passed on his teachings to many, many, many people. There are many people that trained with him. And when I saw the message that he passed away, it was like, wow, it was hard to believe because his words and his essence, his way of being, his philosophy, it's made it out into the world so much. Like the people that study under him, they embody those teachings and that philosophy so much that it's kind of hard to imagine that he's not here anymore. Right? He is, but he isn't. You know how that works. Right. But when I saw that message that he passed, I thought it caused me to reflect. You know what that's like when you reflect back. So even though I haven't trained with him or thought much about that kind of work or done that work in years, I was reflecting on a lot of the great things that I did learn from him that I still, by the way, just because I'm not practicing that modality, it doesn't mean that it's not so incorporated into the work I do, into my thought process, into my body process, into it's very it lends itself to lots of different things, not just the body work. I'm going to give you an example about what I mean by that. So I would say I probably went to at least 300 hours worth of training with him after my massage training. And so these philosophies were grounded and repeated and practiced, right? So you really got to understand them well. And a lot of the things he said were very simple, like very simple. Like even if you heard it, you'd be like, okay, well, that's obvious or that's simple. But when you weaved it into the body work and to the process of what the philosophy of what you were doing, it was very, very powerful. Here's an example of that. A lot of times when you do myofascial release, you hold the tissue, the actual fascial tissue in a position for an extended period of time. So you basically move it to its endpoint or to its barrier to as far as it will go. And you don't push past that barrier, but you hold it there for at least 5 minutes, which can feel like a long time, especially when you're in a physically demanding position. And a lot of times people in classes and seminars and trainings would have questions like, well, how long for this and how long for that and how long for this and how long for that. And the way that he would answer questions was always very present moment based as opposed to intellectual. And that was part of the power of it. So you'd have somebody ask this very long intellectual question. They'd raise their hand. Maybe the question would take 5 minutes for them to get out of their mouth. Long time. And then his answer would be, he'd be very grounded. He'd be very spacious, very firm, very clear, very confident, very slow to speak. And then he would say, it takes as long as it takes. And that's it. He would say nothing else. Now, I didn't capture him well there, meaning like I didn't really get his tone or his speed or his style down, but you can understand how after a long 5-minute intellectual question, response like that moves you into the present moment. It takes as long as it takes. And again, I'm going to say this sounds simple. It sounds obvious. It doesn't sound like it's that profound. But when you start to incorporate that into your life, not just the body work, because again, the body work is sort of like a metaphor for life. I mean, it's a very interesting practice. It takes as long as it takes is ultimate reality. It's not an answer that the mind likes because the mind likes calculations. The mind likes to know 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 years, 5 years, yesterday, tomorrow, right? That's what the mind likes. It's calculated. It needs that kind of data. But the other part of you, the non-logical, non-calculated, non-thinking part of you, which you do have, doesn't need any of those calculations. And it actually feels better when it breaks away from those calculations. So a lot of his teachings were meant to break you away from those calculations that the mind locks you into, and then you think you are. Because you are not your mind. You have a mind. It is an instrument. It is a tool, but you are not your mind. And so while I was not in his head, and I can't really speak for him, what my experience was being a student and being someone that learned from him and being someone that was open to learning from him, much of what he said was a way to get out of the thinking mind. A comment like it takes as long as it takes becomes really helpful when you're in a situation and your mind is demanding a time frame, an exact amount. And then you remind yourself. You're not reminding your mind because your mind isn't like this being, right? Your mind is like a computer. But you're reminding yourself, oh, I'm not here to follow the dictates of the mind. It takes as long as it takes. Okay, I get it. I understand it might be simple. Like, so the intellectual mind will think it's so simple that it's meaningless. But if you invite yourself into the other part of you, the non-thinking part of you, and you give yourself that kind of understanding, the next time you're in, it could be anything. Let's say you're in traffic. And that part of you is like, when is this going to let up? Like, when are we going to start moving? Like, when are they going to tell me what's going on up there and why we're at a standstill, right? Like your mind wants that data so badly. And then you think, it takes as long as it takes. It's going to take as long as it's going to take. And that does put your whole being at ease. Try it the next time you're in traffic. So again, these things were taught to us to use directly with the body work, but they're not exclusive to the body work. They really become an understanding that helps you understand so much about the battle that we're all in this lifetime with our mind assuming a role that it doesn't have. Like your mind is not your director. Your mind is not your authority figure. Your mind is a tool. but it asserts itself like an authority figure. It asserts itself like a director, and it thinks that what it needs is of primary importance. All right, that was a fun little detour. That's not the initial thing that I came to share today. The initial thing I came to share is something that I find, again, profound, just like that last thing that I mentioned. Let yourself slow down enough to find where these things are profound. Okay, so when I share this next thing with you, it might be something that at first you think, no, that's wrong. It's just flat out wrong. That's not why I'm doing it. And I understand that because there was a time in my life where I would have said the same thing. As I said, I started training with him in 2013. And one of the things I heard him say over those, what was it, 7 years, 2013 to 2019, so 6 or 7 years, that I heard him say many times to many, many people. Are you ready? It was to stop giving people tissues. What? Stop giving people tissues? Isn't that like a caring thing to do, especially if they're crying? This form of bodywork, myofascial release, it was very moving. So a lot of times people would have experiences where they would feel things, understand things, realize things. You're going deep. And so there's realizations to be had, and sometimes there's emotions that go along with it. Your body stores everything. Your body is like a storehouse. Your body is like a warehouse. Everything that happens to you in your life is somewhere in your body. And yes, if you process it, it can move out. But I don't know if it moves out completely, meaning I don't know if it erases the memory, but it certainly can free up the flow so that that place in your body doesn't become stagnant. But the point is, your body holds on to things that you don't process, and we haven't really been trained to process things well. And that's part of the beauty of body work, of things like that. There's also pitfalls, and that is why I stepped away from it. There's a lot of things. So I'm not here to glorify this form of body work. I'm not here to glorify the teacher. I'm not here to glorify anything. The practice. I'm not glorifying anything. My goal is to share someone who had an influence in my life, a big influence in my life, who passed recently, and who was remarkable in helping people understand that the mind wants what it wants, and we don't necessarily have to give it what it wants, right? Meaning, like, we are a person, and the mind should not dictate how the person lives. The person should use the mind skillfully to live. All right, let's get back to this tissue thing. And the reason that I thought of this is because a lot of times in my relationships, or even in relationships that I'm just observing, maybe they're not my relationships, but I'm watching other people behave in relationships, I notice the fixing behavior. And it might be in me too, right? I'm not saying that I don't sometimes have an urge to fix. I do. I catch myself. I think it's a very normal thing. Like, we're trained fixers. Right? We have a mind that's always looking for problems and always looking to solve those problems. So that mind that's always looking for problems and always wanting to solve problems, it's always going to be in that fixing mode. So when someone appears to us, if we categorize what they're saying as a problem, then we fix it if we're acting unconsciously. When we bring some awareness in and we start to observe and we say, I almost just acted unconsciously, then we can do something other than fix. What I notice in my own relationships, or relationships that I'm observing, is how much of a limit fixing puts on the person who's being fixed or trying to be fixed. I mean, it also limits the person who's doing the fixing, but they're the ones doing it, so it's sort of like a limit. We could say it's a limitation that is acceptable to them, meaning like they're within the limits that they want to be in, at least unconsciously. Okay. The person who's being fixed, though, if they're sensitive, okay. Now, if they're not sensitive, I wouldn't go as far as to say that they don't tap into this, but maybe they don't have the language for it, the words for it, the understanding for it. That's again another podcast episode. But if they're sensitive at all, it feels really off. It feels really bad to be fixed or to try to be fixed. Because what you really want when you're sad or mad or happy or frustrated or ecstatic is someone to see that. And it's a really interesting thing because, like, for example, let's just say I'm really, really, really happy today. Like, I'm so happy. Who knows, I accomplished something great, or I figured something out that I have been trying to figure out for 3 years. So happy. What's the first thing somebody wants to do when they're so happy? They want to go find someone and say, "Hey, I'm so happy." We like to share our experiences, and we like to do that when we're sad or when we're happy or when we're frustrated or when we're hopeless, right? Going to find somebody to share your experience with is actually like a really good thing. When you get to the point where you don't want to share your experiences with people, it's probably because you've been let down and disappointed and dismissed and all of those other things so many times that you've learned that it's dangerous to do, and you become very cautious about that. Right? Meaning like it's a coping mechanism, and it's not a sign of good health. Good health is things happen and you want to witness. You want somebody to see it, you want somebody to share it with. So when we go to someone with let's start with sadness. When we go to someone with sadness and we say, "I'm really sad," and we start crying. I want you to hear this from the perspective of my teacher, okay? Because again, I know that a lot of times we give tissues because we think we're being helpful and we want to be helpful. And it can even feel offensive or put you on the defense to hear, like, I can't even believe that she or he was saying that giving tissues could be offensive. Like, I know what I feel, and when I'm doing it, I feel like I'm doing it to be caring. And I believe you. I also think there are things to explore underneath that feeling of thinking that you're doing to be helpful. Because, for example, what you deem as helpful is usually a learned behavior. So if somewhere in your life you learned that giving tissues is helpful, like meaning like, I don't know, maybe you saw your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister or the teacher or whoever give a tissue to somebody who was crying, and you were like, "Oh wow, look, they're being really helpful." That's a learned behavior, and it is a judgment, and it has so much to do with your internal state that you're not aware of usually until you start looking. So, for example, let's say when you see someone crying, maybe you don't notice it, but your system starts to feel uncomfortable. It's like uncomfortable. Maybe at some point in your life, you were taught that like feelings are meant to be managed. Like suck it up, like come on, pull yourself together. When someone, by the way, when someone says pull yourself together to me, I feel like I'm being assaulted. I know that sounds strong. I literally feel it like it's that level of strong. So I can remember actually recently, maybe a year and a half ago, I was very sad. And to me, there's nothing wrong with sadness. I have experienced many emotions over many, many decades. And part of my training with this teacher was really deeply, profoundly, and practically understanding how to create a lot of space around feelings. There were other teachers and other things that I did to also create that. but this was a main one. It was a main one. That space, when you give that space to something like sadness or happiness or frustration, there's no need to fix, and you're actually tuning into your body, meaning if someone's in front of me having an emotion or even that style of body work, I mean, like, people would go through all kinds of things on the table while you were working on them. Like, you were trained to be present for whatever came up. Whatever came up, and there were a lot of things that would come up. You didn't try to fix it. You didn't try to manage it. You didn't try to settle it. You didn't try to reason with it. You were nothing more than present with it. You were an observer. You were the one there to observe, to see what was going on, right? Remember, like, when you're happy, you want to run and tell somebody, like, you want that witness, that observer. You were present. You're present. That's it. You're present. When you give somebody a tissue, you're actually moving yourself out of that present place, and you are deciding something that may or may not be true for that person. And a lot of times, if you dig really deep underneath it, I mean, you don't even have to dig that deep. If you just dig shallow, I mean, if you just dig an inch down, but you have to actually go an inch down. You can't just write it off and say, nope, she doesn't know what she's talking about. You have to actually go an inch down. And if you go an inch down, you might start to understand where your behaviors took effect. Maybe you did grow up hearing that you were supposed to manage feelings, that you were supposed to hold it together, keep it together. Sorry, I don't think I finished that story earlier, about a year and a half ago, but that's okay. All right, you may have been taught to manage feelings. You may have seen people around you manage feelings, and you may not know how to be present with feelings that feel out of control because you were never taught. It's that simple. And if something happens, so meaning, like, if you have someone in front of you and a feeling is erupting and you don't know what to do with that, it feels unmanageable. It's like, it's nerve-wracking, right? You're like, oh no, how do I fix this? What do I do? Like, how do I? And of course, your mind is saying, how do I help them? Your mind isn't saying, oh, I'm uncomfortable, I need to fix this for my sake. But very rarely is your mind that level of transparent. You have to dig, whether it's an inch down or it's a foot down. You have to dig to find this stuff that's behind it all. But you will find it. It is there. There's always something there. Let's just say that. There's always something there. You can always, if you dig down an inch deeper, you're going to find something. You can't find nothing if you dig an inch down. And if you go 2 inches down, you can't find nothing. There's going to be something there, right? There's always something you find when you dig deeper. So there's something there. So when you give someone a tissue in that moment, even if your conscious mind tells you you're doing it to help, the message that you could be giving them is, now, you also could be giving them the message that you care. Maybe they grew up in a house like that too, and they think it's care. Okay. But that's not going to be the case all the time. And especially not if you're with somebody who really is sensitive and really understands what it's like to be able to have the freedom to feel fully. So when you give them that tissue, they're getting a subtle message. It's not on the table. So they may not even address it. They may not even say it. They may not even realize it until 24 hours later. But it affects what they do after the tissue. It affects your relationship with them. And it helps them understand to what degree you're capable of holding space for them. So all that information is happening and being transmitted in that handing over of a tissue. Now, by the way, my teacher didn't get into all these specifics because that's not the way he worked, right? He didn't spend time with all this reasoning and intellect and explaining and rationalizing and telling. Like, that wasn't his style. His style was to say, don't give him a tissue. And then to keep reinforcing that on a practical level. So meaning like he might have someone that he's demonstrating on, and maybe they're having what some people would call extreme emotion. He would really anchor it in even at that point. He'd say, if I gave you a tissue right now, what would that say? I mean, he would be doing that for class purposes, but meaning like he would not just state the point, but then he would really anchor it into the practice and help people understand that way. So what I'm sharing today, these are not things that he spoke about in terms of all these whys and the reasonings. That's more what I understand, what I take from it, what I took from it. His style was just to say, don't give him the tissue. And if everybody was like, oh, don't do that. Why? Why not? I mean, he would say something very short with a little laugh after it. And it would be demonstrated, it would be proved, it would be obvious, it would become clear in the rest of the training. These trainings were always multi-day trainings, so it was a place where there was a lot of time to have these things integrate. Think about the next time someone's in front of you. Now, by the way, we don't only do this with sadness, like cover it up with, a tissue or contain it with a tissue, but think about if somebody had like extreme joy. Let's say someone in your life came and they were elated about something. Sometimes it's hard to even give space to that because it's like, well, just be careful. I mean, you're really happy right now and I get it. That's really nice, but something could happen tomorrow that's not going to feel the same. It's not going to be warm and fuzzy. Maybe something's going to come crashing down and the ball's going to drop. Just temper this, like don't let yourself get away with this happiness. Happiness doesn't last forever. Whatever it is. I mean, sometimes we say things like that. I say things like that sometimes, and it's not to contain the happiness. Actually, like if I look at why I do it, I would say I do it because one of my main teachings is to not be swayed over here or over, meaning like when you're swayed to +10 or when you're swayed to -10, those are always danger zones because they're so far away from center, and center or zero isn't like nothingness. It's centered. It's that presence. It's being able to stand across from someone and see them crying and not have to help or fix, just giving them your presence. Because I really like that center and I want to see people anchor into that center, I do my best to anchor into that center. So no matter what I'm feeling, if I'm feeling +10, if I'm feeling -10, like, okay, understand these are extremes. Like, where's center here? How can I get to center and then notice the +10 or the -10 instead of being out here completely or out here completely? Because I've learned from experience that being in those extreme states, it's kind of like a drug on both sides, the plus and the minus. It's not when I say a drug, what I mean by that is like it feels good temporarily, but then when you come down from it or off of it, it feels terrible. So that's what I mean, like it feels like a drug. Okay, so yes, I do sometimes try to contain people's joy. I do sometimes try to say like, okay, this is amazing. This is wonderful. I think it's so great. What an accomplishment. Just be careful that this kind of joy doesn't help you understand that there's going to be things that aren't joyful, possibly in the next minute, possibly tomorrow. So we try to contain things. That's just our nature. And it's our nature and it's our conditioning. I don't even know if it's our nature. It's our conditioning. Like we've been conditioned to have the nature to contain things. Is there ever a time where you could give somebody a tissue and it wouldn't be shutting them down? I think so. This is how I would see that to be the case. Let's say someone's crying in front of me. Let's say someone starts crying. Like they just come, they just say, "Oh, Gina, I've got to tell you something," and they start talking, and all of a sudden the tears start coming. To give them a tissue at that point gives them the subtle message that, like, uh-oh, it's like a scramble. Oh no, let me find a tissue for you, right? I would say that's not the time to give them a tissue. I would sit there, stand there, and I'd be very present, and I would hear what they were saying. And I'd let that flow. Right? I'd let it flow. I would just let it be. I would just see where it goes. And then let's say it came to a point where it kind of felt like, you know, they were, I don't know, it just felt like a natural pause. I'm not looking for the pause. It kind of felt like a natural pause. And maybe they have tons of tears running down their face, maybe their whole shirt's wet. I don't know, whatever the case may be. I might say, is there something I can do for you? Is there something you would like for me to get you? Is there some way I can help you? And if they said, yeah, a tissue would be great, I would say, absolutely, let me get you a tissue. You see how different that is than giving them the tissue right away. And the only reason that I know that this is a really hard thing to get, and the reason I'm putting all this time into explaining it, is because for me, when my teacher said it, I got it right away. Like, it made so much intuitive sense to me, so much. So I've been a very sensitive person my whole life. So I really understand things like this. I really understand nonverbal communication. When he said it, it was a no-brainer. It was like, wow, it's brilliant because it's so clear, yet somehow we all miss it because we've been so programmed to do otherwise. And I just figured that hearing it alone would be that much of an epiphany for everyone that hears it. But over the years, I have said it to people, and I can see that their reaction is like, they feel that it's not true, number one. Maybe they feel like they're being judged. I don't know. They didn't say that, but that's kind of like the reaction. It seems like maybe they feel like they're being judged, or that we're calling a behavior that they see as good and helpful as harmful, and that puts them on the defense. And that's not what I'm doing here. That's not like when I heard my teacher say it, like I wasn't like, oh no, like all those years that I gave people tissues, I have to defend myself. No, it was like, wow. Yeah, like, look what I was trained to do, and how great that I'm at this place where I'm getting this new understanding that makes total sense intuitively. I'm not asking you to agree. I would never ask you to agree. I mean, I would ask you to agree if you agree, but if you don't agree, I would never ask you to agree. All I ask you to do is to notice what's happening in you the next time someone breaks down into tears or tells you something that you decide is negative or upsetting to them, or straying them off of some kind of good managed feeling. Just notice what's happening in you, notice the feelings it brings in you, and how much you might want to contain those. And then through wanting to contain those, you actually contain the other person by trying to fix it. And it might be fixing it with a tissue. It might be fixing it with words. It might be fixing it with something else. But it's literally that fix it mode that is engaged, right? Because maybe you're on a Zoom call and they can't give you a tissue. But what's the metaphorical tissue? What kind of metaphorical tissue are you giving to people? And how might it be shutting them down? At the very least, I mean, I can tell you it shuts me down. It absolutely 100% shuts me down. And it's not that it's shutting me down, meaning like that's a bad thing, it's shutting me down. It's actually a good thing. It's a protective mechanism. Meaning, like, if I'm in the company of someone who I don't feel like I can have my full range of feelings with, then and they're not going to be comfortable with that. I mean, it shuts me down because, like, why would I want to do that? Right? I would rather go find someone, if I need to share that moment, I would rather go find someone who can contain it, I'm sorry, can be present with it, right? Meaning who doesn't have to contain it. So meaning like, I want to go find someone who can just stand there and witness. And then it would seem strange if that person didn't say at some point, is there something I can do to help you? I would love to do something to help you. Let me know what that is. Right. So it's not about taking such a step back that you seem disengaged and uncaring. I think it's beautiful that you care. I think if you've ever given someone a tissue in your life, in that instance, it's a beautiful thing because you were trained to believe it was caring. And so you're doing it out of care, but you're just missing some of the underneath stuff, possibly, right? If you look an inch or 2 inches or 3 inches down. I know that was the case for me. All right. I know that there's a lot of things that I just picked up, social cues, training, conditioning, programs, all the stuff that we're exposed to that I took on, and I questioned a lot of them, but some of them went over my radar, under my radar. I didn't question them until it was brought to my attention. And then when it was brought to my attention, luckily it intuitively made sense and I didn't have to fight it intellectually, but maybe there's some things that I haven't even heard yet that I would fight intellectually. Who knows? We don't know what we don't know until we know it. The next time someone is breaking down, crying, upset, frustrated, angry, right? I mean, anger can be a very hard thing to be around. Like, how do you try to contain anger if somebody gets angry in front of you? Like, okay, wait. Like, I mean, think about it. Like, if somebody's really angry in front of me, like, I go into mode of like, okay, let's meaning unconsciously, I would go into the mode of like, let's get them settled down. Right. But if I'm behaving consciously, like if I was there as a practitioner, I would be present. I mean, as long as they weren't hurting me or hurting somebody else with that anger, I'd be very present with that anger. Because there's nothing wrong with anger as an emotion. There's only something wrong if it turns into a behavior. How can you be more present in your relationships? How can I be more present in my relationships? I'm always asking myself that question. How can you think about this tissue thing? And think about who are the special teachers in your life? Right? I've had a few special teachers, like really, really special teachers. And even though I don't still talk with them, train with them for very specific reasons that I perhaps one day will do a podcast on. I really, really, really hold dear the things that I learned from them. Like they were big. I'm sure you've had teachers like this in your life that taught you things, and maybe you still learn from them. Maybe you've separated yourself from them for whatever reasons. But it's nice to think about those things. It's nice to reflect on them. It's nice to think about, because it's not just about the tissue. Just like it takes as long as it takes isn't just about how long you're holding the fascial tissue. It's about being in traffic. It's about a relationship that seems like it's taking a long time to repair. How long is this going to take? Right? I mean, think about how many times people ask those kinds of questions. I've been trying to communicate with this person for years. How long is it going to take? Well, guess what the answer is? It takes as long as it takes. I don't know. It might take 5 years. It might take 10 years. It might happen tomorrow. It takes as long as it takes. That takes you out of that thinking mind, which will drive you crazy until you have an absolute finite answer. But that's not where reality is. We don't know how long it's going to take. It might take 50 years. It might take 5 minutes. The tissue, it takes as long as it takes, right? All of these things, they don't just apply to the body work. They apply to everything. Where are you shutting yourself down? Where are you shutting other people down? I mean, do you shut yourself down when you have a lot of sadness? Now, while it's not good to linger in sadness, meaning like if you're feeling really sad, feel it for a few minutes, right? Don't linger in it, because lingering in it could cause a lot of harm, right? Don't stay there. Don't stay there for long periods of time. yes, it is possible to move yourself out of feelings. Okay. You don't have to let them run you. So meaning like if you're sad for an extended period of time, like get someone to help you with that. Okay. If you don't know how to break that sadness and do something else and focus on a different feeling, don't let the sadness pull you down. Okay. Don't let it hurt you. But for a few minutes, for a half hour, for an afternoon, if you feel really sad, if you're grieving the loss of someone, like that's okay. And how could you get to the place where it's safe to let yourself have those feelings and feel those feelings, knowing that you're not going to be overtaken by them and knowing that there's someone in your life who you could talk to about it, who can be the space for it without trying to make it smaller or contain it or make or smooth it out, make it go away. So I think that was the story that I started and didn't finish. I remember being very sad a year and a half ago, and I shared that with someone, and they said something like, "Okay, get it together." And I don't think, I mean, again, that's their training, right? That's like them giving a tissue. They weren't doing it to be mean. You're not giving tissues to be mean, and you're not saying, "Let's get it together," to be mean. That's clear. You're doing it to be helpful. But is it helpful? Is it helpful for you? Is it helpful for them? I know it's not helpful for me. And I do I do state it when it's happening that it's not helpful. I hope that this conversation was helpful. I want to really thank my teacher for the things that he taught me and the life that he had and led, and yeah. If you would like to go an inch deeper, 2 inches deeper, 3 inches deeper, or maybe just an eighth of an inch deeper, I have the membership, which is Say It Straight to Yourself, the journal prompts membership. You get one little tiny, profound, reflective question a day, 5 days a week, weekends off, to spend 3 minutes or less a day answering. For what reason? To keep building your awareness, your presence, your ability to be the space for these things. Those that started in the very beginning, meaning the first day, like I started this, let's see how many it's been. I think we're on like 125 prompts now. So it's been a few months. I started it a few months back. Those that started it in the very beginning, meaning because if you start today, you start with prompt number 1, right? But there's a few of us, me included, that started in the very beginning. And think about that. We've answered 125 questions, and the questions go an eighth of an inch deeper. They go as deep as you want them to go. But that kind of gentle 3-minute a day, looking, observing, being the space for, being the presence for it, that's what you're doing when you do that. You're being the space for your experience. You're an amazing person. Like you're here living life. And if you're like the rest of us, you're half the time or more beating yourself up, thinking you're not getting it right, you're not doing it right, you're not ahead, you didn't get the goal, whatever it is. Right? It's like, but how could you be the space for the amazingness that you are living every day? And that's what these questions help you build, is the spaciousness for that. And it takes time. It takes time, but not a lot of time every day, meaning like it takes time this way, like a penny a day. One penny a day. At the end of the year, you have 365 pennies. Right? Have you ever thought of that? I just thought about that recently. I thought like, wow, If every time someone in my life gave me a money gift, right? Like I've gotten lots of gifts of money in my life over the course of the last 50 years. If every single time someone gave me a money gift, I had put half of it into savings, how much would I have today? And I learned from my mistakes. So that's what I've started doing now. Actually, just recently, I did a little bit less than half, but for a good reason. But in the future, that's my new practice. It's like if I get money as a gift, which is so beautiful and amazing and fun, right? So nice when people give you money. I mean, it's nice when people give you anything. It's nice to have support as a human. So when somebody gives you money, like imagine if your whole life you would put half of that away, how much you would have. Like, isn't that just fun to think about? Okay, so where was I going with that? The journal questions. So when you get one question a day and you answer them one question a day, at the end of the year, you've answered hundreds of questions that help you witness your experience. Witness the good that you're moving through. Witness the sadness that you might feel about a certain situation. Witness the frustration you have when things don't go your way. So, see, by doing that, you are being that space instead of containing, and just doing what I know, just doing what I've been taught. You're becoming spacious for your own experience, which is such a beautiful gift that you can give yourself and that you can give others. If you would like to start tomorrow, the link to Say It Straight to Yourself journal prompt membership is in the show notes. If you like this episode, share it, like it, subscribe, do something. Do something. All right. Hit that bell so that you're notified of upcoming episodes. I post them on Wednesdays each week in general. And I am on episode 20 today, and I plan to go to 100. Maybe I'll go beyond 100, but right now my goal is just to do 100 and see where it takes me. Have a fabulous rest of your day or rest of your night. Think about a teacher in your life who's done something nice or imparted some wisdom, and be the space. Be the space for yourself, for someone today. Bye for now.